outbound webinar. So the first question is, can there be, is the independent internal audit conducted by a third party actually necessary? And can the internal audit be done by legal and compliance department of a company? If any,
that's a very good question, Matthew. I think that one SEMA registered person, in investment manager, investment advisor, has that kind of question in their mind. They have to self-assess, well, are these persons, individuals that are going to conduct the AML audit, are they independent? Are they independent enough? Are they conflicted? Will they get more salary? Will they get any bonus if the company does well? That's a very difficult question to assess, because obviously if a company does well, the employees are going to be doing well. So there might be over there a conflict of interest, but also are they experienced? And when we say are they experienced, are they extensively experienced with enough knowledge and understanding of the Cayman Island AML regime? Because it's not like they're here, they're constant updates of the AML regime in the Cayman Islands. So when deciding if it's possible to do it in-house, well, if the organization is large enough, maybe, but are they really enough experience with the Cayman Island AML regime? If that's the case, yes, but the risk, considering the fines that SEMA can impose, are so high that sometimes you're going to save, let's say, $5,000 to $10,000, but a minor fine is between $5,000 and $20,000 for each single fine, each single minor offense. And then for a large one, it's up to $1 million. So the risk is exponential. So it's sometimes better just to self-assess that question and say, what we're going to save is not worthy. It's better to outsource this AML audit with a third party that has that extensive knowledge and understanding of the Cayman Island AML regime, because even if it's very similar, it goes under the same international organization like the Financial Action Task Force, OECD, and so on, that, for example, Hong Kong, BVI, and so on. There are so many nuances in the Cayman Island AML regime that may not be enough. They might not be, even if they have a lot of experience, they might not be experienced enough on that particular Cayman Island AML regime.
Yeah, very thorough answer. And yeah, I think the point that you made just about understanding, how much you could save versus potentially be fined in case the internal audit doesn't meet the requirements, or whether or not they're sufficiently qualified to perform such an audit. That's a very valid point, because yeah, you kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul in this case, by saving a few $1,000s on your audit, but potentially ending up with $1 million fine. It's a very good point. Thank you, Santiago. So moving on to the next question, there was one panelist, one attendee who mentioned that you are currently under a SEMA audit right now. And I think this case in particular, because to get a legal opinion on whether or not you may have any further issues with SEMA or the quality of your response to SEMA, that's definitely a very specific case that Loeb Smith would feel to better serve you if you have a private conversation about that. So we are going to skip that question for the purpose of the webinar, but please, the person who wrote that question, certainly reach out to us or Loeb Smith directly, so you can have your questions answered. The next question is, will a fund dealing with cryptocurrency fall within the definition of VASP? And if not, does it need to hire a VASP instead? Anyone feel this question?
Sure. So I think this probably relates to the draft BVI legislation that I referred to. I suppose it depends what is meant by the fund dealing in cryptocurrency. So, for example, if it's dealing in the cryptocurrency simply as part of its investment strategy, and so therefore for its own account, then it's very unlikely that it will fall within the definition of VASP, because the VASP legislation is very much driven towards regulating the sorts of entities or businesses who deal or provide crypto-based services on behalf of third parties. So, for example, if you were a business that operated or hosted crypto wallets that third parties use, then you would fall very squarely within the definition of VASP. But simply trading within cryptocurrency or digital assets more broadly for your own account, I wouldn't expect them to fall within that definition, no.
Okay, thank you, Robert. The next question, there's a question that is, does an LP of a Cayman ELP constitute a UBO of that ELP? So this question, again, quite specific in nature, and would require a further legal opinion directly from Loeb Smith. So the person who asked this question, please reach us or reach Loeb Smith directly, so that we can make sure that answer has been provided to you in the correct format. So just going down on the next questions. So companies in Cayman Islands with non-registered person positions, they do not need to comply with CRS. Is that correct? This is a translated question, so I'm not sure if that makes enough sense. If it does, go ahead and please answer it.
I think so. So it depends really what that Cayman company does, what its business is, because there are different levels of compliance with CRS that are required. So we have what are called RFIs, or reporting financial institutions. The classic example of those are banks. So if they have customers who maintain savings and current accounts with them, for example, then they will require their clients to complete questionnaires, which essentially amounts to self-certification for CRS purposes, and then the bank will collate all of that information, and they in turn will make declarations or disclosures to the tax authority in the relevant jurisdiction, and then that tax authority will then share it with other tax authorities across the globe. So whoever asked that question, if you'd like to get in touch, please do, and we can explore that more fully, depending on what the nature of that Cayman company's business is.
Thank you, Robert. Okay, and the final question is, does the internal AML audit need to be done annually?
Well, I think we touched bases on this during the presentation. The internal AML audit has to be done as per the AML manual. So each organization, each registered person, investment manager, investment advisor, will have an AML manual, and that AML manual will say how often that AML audit has to be conducted. Normally, we always say at least every 3 years. If the investment manager and the investment advisor is undertaking clients that have very risky approach, funds that, for example, they do the subscription and redemption on cryptocurrencies or certain assets, or they operate in a very particular area, we recommend to have the AML audits more often than 3 years, but that's up to the AML manual of each organization. But the AML manual is a must for all registered person, and if any of the attendees require an AML manual for their investment managers or investment advisor, we'll be happy to discuss, understand the nature of their business and the nature of their plans, and prepare and draft a bespoke AML manual for their needs.
Perfect. Thank you, Santiago. So that of the questions that can be answered in this venue, that brings us to an end of that list. So first of all, thank you, panelists,